Quavo allegedly failed to pay, now this is what TMZ say, a massive seven-figure tax bill.
Quavo went from looking like one of the most financially secure rappers in the industry to facing a massive federal tax problem almost overnight. Reports revealed that the IRS placed a federal tax lien on him worth nearly $3 million, claiming he failed to pay federal income taxes for 3 straight years. The lien was filed against Quavius Keyate Marshall in the state of Georgia, and according to documents obtained and reported by media outlets, the total amount the government says he owes is $2,912,644.33. That number did not appear all at once. It built up over time. The IRS claims Quavo owes $915,660 for 1 year, $887,486 for the next year, and over $1 million for the following year. Each year, the balance grew larger as penalties and interest stacked on top of the original unpaid taxes. This pattern shows that the debt had been sitting unresolved for years before it finally became public. When the report first surfaced online, fans immediately started asking the same question: how does a rapper who appears to have tens of millions of dollars end up owing nearly $3 million in taxes? The key detail is understanding what a federal tax lien actually means. A lot of people see headlines about the IRS and assume the government is immediately seizing property, but that is not how it works at the start. A federal tax lien is essentially the government placing a legal claim on everything a taxpayer owns until the debt is resolved. That includes property, vehicles, bank accounts, royalty income, and any other financial assets tied to that person. Once the lien is filed, the IRS becomes first in line when it comes to collecting money. If the person sells property, the government gets paid first. If assets are moved around, the lien still follows them. It does not mean agents are immediately taking possessions, but it does mean the government has a legal hold over the person's financial life until the bill is cleared. The filing happened in Georgia, where Quavo lives and where his primary property and assets are located. The timing of the situation also made headlines because only weeks earlier the IRS had removed a lien on his fellow Migos member Offset after Offset paid off his own tax debt from a previous year. That contrast immediately caught people's attention. One artist from the same group had already cleared his situation, while Quavo was now facing a lien worth nearly $3 million. As of the moment the documents became public, Quavo and his team had not released any official statement explaining the situation or announcing a payment plan. The lien remained active in the public record, leaving many people wondering whether the money needed to settle the debt was actually available. On paper, the situation might not look catastrophic. Financial websites estimate Quavo's net worth to be around $40 million, built primarily during the peak years of Migos, through album sales.
Here is how one commentator clocked the numbers in real time.
Streaming numbers, global tours, and brand collaborations. That estimate also includes revenue from his solo projects, features on...
I don't think he was over his money. He probably had a financial advisor or accountant that was over it that didn't do right.
On other artists' songs, and his share of the group's publishing and master recordings. The value of his mansion, luxury...
The IRS claim Quavo owes $915,000 on one event in 2021, and in 2022 he ate $887,000.
Luxury vehicles and other personal assets also contribute to that total. At first glance, a $3 million tax bill might seem small compared to a $40 million net worth. However, that number does not mean he has $40 million sitting in a bank account ready to spend. Net worth calculations include property, investments, and assets that cannot be quickly converted into cash. That difference between wealth on paper and actual liquidity is where many artists run into problems. In the entertainment industry, it is common for someone to appear extremely wealthy, while much of their money is tied up in homes, cars, contracts, and long-term revenue streams, rather than accessible cash. When the IRS files a lien, it covers everything.
And then in 2023, he owed $1.1 million bringing his total to $2.9 million that he owed.
Under that umbrella. Quavo owns a large mansion in Alpharetta, Georgia, that he purchased for nearly $2 million several years ago. That property is considered one of the primary assets covered by the lien. Public records do not show additional real estate connected to this case, but the lien still applies broadly to anything tied to his finances. His car collection is also widely known and includes several high-end vehicles, such as luxury SUVs and supercars, each worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Vehicles, like property, are considered personal assets and can fall under the scope of a federal tax lien. Beyond physical items, the IRS's claim also applies to intangible income sources. Royalties from the Migos catalog, streaming revenue, publishing rights, and income from guest features are all considered part of the financial picture. Those streams can generate money for years, but they are not always easy to measure publicly. The result is a complicated situation where someone can appear extremely wealthy, but still face serious financial pressure when large debts come due. Quavo still had scheduled performances and festival bookings, showing that income was still coming in, yet the unpaid tax balance had already grown for 3 consecutive years before the government finally filed the lien. That raises a larger question about how the situation was allowed to reach this point without being resolved earlier.
When people started looking deeper into Quavo's financial history, it became clear that the IRS lien did not appear out of nowhere. The situation sits on top of a longer history of financial disputes, lawsuits, and management issues that have followed him and the Migos brand for years. One of the most significant examples dates back to a legal case filed by the members of Migos against their longtime attorney. In that lawsuit, Quavo, Offset, and Takeoff accused the lawyer of professional malpractice and breach of fiduciary duty. They alleged that he was simultaneously representing both the artists and their record label, which created a conflict of interest. According to the claims, certain business decisions made during their rise in the music industry favored the label's interests instead of the artists themselves. The group argued that those decisions may have cost them millions of dollars in potential earnings related to publishing rights, merchandise, and performance revenue. The lawsuit also referenced negotiations surrounding their transition between record label agreements, which the artists believed had been structured in a way that was financially unfavorable for them. Eventually, the case was dropped, and no public settlement amount was ever announced. Even though the lawsuit ended without a final payout, it raised serious questions about how the group's finances had been handled during the peak of their success. Situations like that are not uncommon in the music industry. Many artists rely heavily on lawyers, accountants, and business managers to handle complex financial matters while they focus on their careers. When those relationships break down or become complicated, problems can remain hidden until they grow into much larger issues. Alongside those disputes, Quavo also faced several other legal matters that added additional financial pressure. A copyright lawsuit claimed that one of his songs borrowed elements from another track created years earlier. The artist who filed the case argued that he had originally shared his music
The Migos and took a big hit ever since Takeoff that lost his life. Ever since really.
directly with Quavo, and later recognized similarities in the final release. That lawsuit was still active with no final resolution publicly announced. Another case came from a visual artist who claimed that promotional material connected to Quavo used an image of his artwork without permission. The lawsuit argued that the image had been used commercially without credit or compensation.
Uncle Sam is saying to Quavo, Quavo, hey, how are you doing? You need to pay us what you owe.
Both cases required legal defense and could potentially result in financial penalties if the courts ruled against him. At the same time these legal matters were unfolding, Quavo experienced one of the most devastating personal losses of his life. Takeoff, his nephew and fellow member of Migos, was killed during an incident in Houston. The two had recently been working together as a duo after the group's activity slowed down, and they had just released a collaborative project. Takeoff's death not only affected Quavo emotionally, but also changed the financial structure that had supported the group for years. During the height of Migos' success, their tours generated tens of millions of dollars. Large arena shows, brand partnerships, and group releases created a steady stream of income that supported all three members. After the group stopped performing together, those massive touring revenues disappeared. Solo projects and individual features continued to generate income, but they rarely matched the scale of the group's peak years. On top of that, Takeoff's estate became involved in its own legal processes because he passed away without a will. That meant the distribution of his wealth and royalties had to follow state inheritance laws, which created additional legal proceedings involving family members and administrators managing the estate. During this same period, tensions between Quavo and Offset also became public. The two artists had disagreements that played out through social media posts, interviews, and reports from people close to the situation. The conflict further reduced the chances of a Migos reunion or future joint projects that could have generated significant revenue. Without the collective brand power of the group, both artists had to rely more heavily on individual careers to maintain their financial momentum. Quavo also faced public scrutiny related to a past relationship controversy that circulated widely online. Although it did not result in criminal charges or civil judgment, the situation damaged his public image during a turbulent period in his career. All of these events happened within a relatively short window of time. Legal disputes, lawsuits, financial management questions, personal tragedy, and the collapse of one of the biggest rap groups in the industry created a chain reaction of problems that eventually led to the current situation. The IRS